Marcus Thompson never imagined he would hold a rifle in his hands, let alone become one of the most talked-about snipers in military history. At 19 years old, he was just another small-town kid from Nebraska with calloused hands from farm work and dreams that didn't extend much beyond the cornfields that surrounded his family's property. The Thompson farm had been in the family for 3 generations. Marcus spent his childhood mornings feeding cattle and his afternoons fixing broken machinery alongside his father, Robert. His mother, Sarah, worked as the local school's librarian, always encouraging Marcus to read more and think about college. But college seemed like an expensive dream for a family that struggled to pay bills even in good harvest years. Marcus had always been different from other kids his age. While his classmates played video games or hung out at the local diner, he preferred spending time alone in the woods behind the farm. He would sit for hours perfectly still, watching deer graze or birds build their nests. His patience was legendary among his family members. His younger sister Emma used to joke that Marcus could outweight a statue. This natural stillness came from an unusual gift that Marcus didn't fully understand himself. He could slow his breathing and heart rate almost at will. During high school basketball games, while other players got nervous and missed free throws, Marcus would stand at the line with an eerily calm demeanor and sink shot after shot. His coach called it ice in his veins, but Marcus just thought everyone could do what he did. The economic reality of rural America hit the Thompson family hard during Marcus's senior year of high school. Crop prices fell, and the bank started making uncomfortable phone calls about the farm's mortgage. Robert worked extra jobs in town, but it wasn't enough. The family faced a choice that thousands of American families know too well: sell the generational farm or find another way to make ends meet. Marcus watched his father's shoulders slump a little, more each day as bills piled up on the kitchen table. Sarah worked overtime at the library, but her salary barely covered groceries. Emma, 2 years younger than Marcus, pretended not to notice when her parents whispered about money late into the night. But Marcus saw the worry in her eyes. One evening in March, as snow still covered the Nebraska plains, Marcus sat with his father on the front porch. They watched the sunset paint the sky orange and pink, neither speaking for a long time. Finally, Robert broke the silence. "Son, I'm sorry we can't send you to college like we planned," he said, his voice heavy with disappointment. Marcus had been thinking about this moment for weeks. "Dad, what if I joined the military? The recruiter who came to school said they have programs that could help me get an education later." Robert looked at his son with surprise. Marcus had never shown interest in military service. The family had no military tradition. Robert had been too young for Vietnam and too old for the Gulf War. "Are you sure about this, Marcus? Military life is nothing like farm life." But Marcus had already made up his mind. He had researched different branches and learned about the benefits. More importantly, he could send money home to help his family keep the farm. It seemed like the only solution that made sense. 3 days later, Marcus walked into the Army recruiting station in the nearest city, 2 hours away from home. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, a compact man with kind eyes and a firm handshake, sat across from Marcus in a small office decorated with military posters and achievement awards. "What brings you here, son?" Rodriguez asked, studying Marcus's application. "My family needs help, and I want to serve my country," Marcus replied simply. Rodriguez had heard similar stories countless times, but something about Marcus's quiet confidence caught his attention. During their conversation, Rodriguez learned about Marcus's unusual patience and steady hands. When he mentioned that Marcus had never missed a shot while hunting with his grandfather's old rifle, Rodriguez's interest piqued. "Have you ever considered becoming a marksman?" Rodriguez asked. Marcus shook his head. He knew what snipers did from movies and video games, but it seemed like something only special people could do. "Let me tell you something," Rodriguez continued. "The military is always looking for people with natural shooting ability. But more than that, we need people who can think clearly under pressure and stay calm when everything around them is chaos." Rodriguez explained the sniper program and the extensive training it required. It wasn't just about shooting. Snipers needed to understand weather, mathematics, camouflage, and dozens of other skills. They often worked alone or in small teams, requiring mental toughness and independence. Marcus listened carefully, asking thoughtful questions. Rodriguez noticed that Marcus never seemed rushed or anxious, even when discussing potentially life-changing decisions. This kid had something special, a natural calmness that couldn't be taught. By the end of their meeting, Marcus had signed up for infantry with a request to try out for sniper school if he qualified during basic training. Rodriguez shook his hand and made a note in Marcus's file about his potential for specialized training. The drive home felt longer than usual. Marcus stared out the window at the familiar landscape, endless fields, old barns, and farmhouses scattered across the horizon. In 6 weeks, he would leave this world behind and enter something completely different. That night at dinner, Marcus told his family about his decision. Sarah cried quietly while Emma asked 100 questions about military life. Robert nodded slowly, pride and worry competing in his expression. "I'm scared for you," Sarah said finally, "but I'm also proud. You're trying to help this family in the only way you can." Over the next few weeks, Marcus continued his normal routine, but started preparing mentally for military life. He read everything he could about the Army and watched documentaries about different military occupations. The more he learned about snipers, the more interested he became. Marcus began timing himself on various tasks, trying to improve his focus and patience. He would lie motionless in the woods for hours, practicing breathing techniques he found online. His natural abilities started to feel more purposeful, like they might actually be useful for something important. His grandfather's old hunting rifle became his constant companion during these practice sessions. Marcus cleaned and maintained it with obsessive care, learning every part and mechanism. He started keeping a shooting diary, recording weather conditions, distances, and results for every shot. The day before leaving for basic training, Marcus stood in the same spot where he and his father had talked about the future. The farm looked exactly the same, but Marcus felt completely different. He was no longer just a farm kid with limited options. He was someone with a mission and skills that might make a real difference. As he packed his few belongings into an old duffel bag, Marcus couldn't have imagined that within 18 months, he would make a shot that would change everything, not just for his family, but for military history itself. Fort Benning, Georgia felt like stepping into a different planet for Marcus Thompson. The humid southern heat hit him like a wall when he stepped off the bus, and the constant shouting of drill sergeants created a chaos he had never experienced in quiet Nebraska. Everything moved fast, too fast for someone used to the patient rhythms of farm life. Basic training challenged Marcus in ways he hadn't expected. The physical demands weren't the problem. Years of farm work had given him strength and endurance. The real struggle was learning to function in a world where everything happened at maximum intensity and volume. Drill Sergeant Williams, an intimidating man from Texas with 20 years of military experience, seemed to target Marcus during the first few weeks. He noticed that the quiet farm boy moved differently than the other recruits, slower, more deliberate, always thinking before acting. "Thompson," Williams would shout across the training ground, "this isn't your grandfather's farm. Move with some urgency." Marcus tried to adapt, but his natural patience kept getting him in trouble. While other recruits rushed through tasks, making mistakes in their hurry, Marcus took time to do things correctly. This approach frustrated his drill sergeants, but impressed some of the instructors who valued precision over speed. The turning point came during weapons training in week 6. Marcus had been struggling with the pace of military life, earning extra duties for what his sergeants called failure to adapt to military standards. Some nights, lying in his narrow bunk, he wondered if joining the Army had been a terrible mistake. On the rifle range, everything changed. The M16 felt different from his grandfather's hunting rifle, but the fundamentals were the same. Marcus approached the shooting line with his characteristic calm, tuning out the noise and chaos around him. Master Sergeant Patricia Chen supervised the range that day. A former competitive shooter herself, Chen had an eye for natural talent that couldn't be taught in any manual. She watched each recruit carefully, looking for those special few who might qualify for specialized training programs. Marcus fired his first group of shots at the 100-meter target. When the targets were examined, Chen's eyebrows raised slightly. Every shot had landed within a 2-inch circle, extraordinary accuracy for a recruit using standard iron sights. "Thompson, front and center," Chen called out. Marcus jogged to where Chen stood, expecting another lecture about military bearing or uniform standards. Instead, she studied him with new interest. "Where did you learn to shoot like that?" she asked. My grandfather taught me hunting back home, Master Sergeant, Marcus replied. Chen nodded slowly. She had seen farm boys who could shoot, but Marcus's grouping showed something more than basic hunting skills. The consistency and precision suggested natural gifts that could be developed into something exceptional. I want you to try something, Chen said, pulling out a different rifle, a more advanced weapon with a scope. Let's see what you can do at 300 meters. The other recruits watched as Marcus settled into position. Chen noticed immediately that his breathing pattern was different from typical shooters. Instead of the quick, shallow breaths common among nervous recruits, Marcus breathed slowly and deeply, his heart rate visibly slowing as he prepared to shoot. The first shot hit dead center. The second shot landed less than an inch away. By the fifth shot, Marcus had created a grouping that would have impressed experienced snipers. Chen made a note in her logbook and pulled Marcus aside after the training session ended. Thompson, I'm recommending you for advanced marksmanship evaluation, she said. There's a sniper program assessment in 2 months. If you're interested and if you can improve your military bearing, I think you should apply. That conversation changed everything for Marcus. Suddenly, his natural tendencies weren't problems to be fixed. They were assets to be developed. He still struggled with some aspects of military life, but now he had a goal that made sense of his experiences. Marcus threw himself into preparation with the same methodical approach he had used for everything else in his life. He studied ballistics manuals, meteorology textbooks, and field craft guides during his limited free time. His bunkmates thought he had lost his mind, spending hours reading about wind drift and bullet trajectory instead of relaxing or writing letters home. Physical training became more focused. Marcus learned that snipers needed exceptional core strength and cardiovascular endurance to remain steady during long periods in position. He started doing extra exercises, building on his natural farm work fitness with specialized training. The mental preparation was equally important. Marcus practiced meditation techniques designed to slow his heart rate and control his breathing. He would lie awake at night, practicing the mental exercises that would help him remain calm under extreme stress. His family's letters provided motivation during the most difficult days. Sarah wrote about her pride in seeing Marcus grow and change, while Emma shared gossip from their small town that made him smile. Robert's letters were shorter but filled with quiet encouragement and updates about the farm. Most importantly, Robert mentioned in one letter that the military payments Marcus was sending home were helping stabilize the family's financial situation. The farm wasn't out of danger yet, but they were no longer facing immediate foreclosure. 8 weeks after that first day on the range, Marcus stood outside the building where sniper program assessments took place. 23 recruits had been selected for evaluation. Only 6 would be chosen for the intensive training program. The assessment lasted 3 days and tested everything from basic marksmanship to psychological stability. Candidates faced scenarios designed to reveal how they performed under pressure, how they worked in small teams, and whether they possessed the mental toughness required for sniper operations. Marcus approached each test with his characteristic patience and methodical thinking. While other candidates rushed through exercises or became frustrated with complex problems, Marcus took his time and focused on accuracy over speed. The psychological evaluation proved especially interesting. Dr. Amanda Foster, a military psychologist with years of experience evaluating special operations candidates, found Marcus's profile unusual. His stress response was remarkably low, and his ability to maintain focus during extended periods was exceptional. Most people's heart rate increases significantly under stress. Dr. Foster explained to Marcus during their interview, "Your heart rate actually seems to decrease. That's extremely rare and very valuable for the kind of work snipers do." On the final day, candidates faced a comprehensive shooting test at various distances and conditions. Marcus had never shot at some of the longer ranges, but his understanding of ballistics and weather effects helped him make the necessary adjustments. When the results were announced, Marcus felt his heart skip a beat. His name was called second on the list of successful candidates. 6 months of sniper school lay ahead, the most challenging training the military offered to enlisted soldiers. That night, Marcus called home from a payphone outside the barracks. Sarah answered, and Marcus could hear the television playing in the background, probably the evening news that his parents never missed. "Mom," I have some news, Marcus said, trying to keep his voice steady. Are you okay? You sound different, Sarah replied, immediately concerned. I'm better than okay. I've been accepted for sniper training. It's a special program that only a few people get selected for. The silence on the other end of the line lasted several seconds. Finally, Sarah spoke, her voice thick with emotion. Marcus, I don't completely understand what this means, but I can hear in your voice that it's important to you. We're proud of you, son. Marcus hung up the phone and looked up at the Georgia stars, so different from the familiar constellations above his family's farm. Everything was changing, and he was changing with it. The quiet farm boy who had struggled to adapt to military life was about to become something he had never imagined possible. In 18 months, that transformation would culminate in a single shot that would make Marcus Thompson a legend. But first, he had to survive the most demanding training program the military had to offer. The United States Army Sniper School at Fort Moore, Georgia, was designed to break students before building them into precision weapons. Marcus Thompson arrived on a humid Monday morning in September, carrying everything he owned in a single duffel bag and a head full of determination mixed with uncertainty. Instructor Sergeant First Class Jake Morrison stood before the 24 sniper candidates like a statue carved from granite. With 15 years of combat experience and a reputation for producing the finest marksmen in the military, Morrison had seen hundreds of soldiers attempt this program. Most failed within the first month. Gentlemen, Morrison began, his voice carrying across the classroom without needing to be raised. You are about to begin the most demanding course the Army offers to enlisted personnel. Over the next 6 months, we will push you beyond what you think are your limits. Some of you will quit. Some of you will be dismissed. If you're lucky, 6 or 7 of you will graduate. Marcus looked around at his fellow candidates. They came from different backgrounds: city kids, farm boys, college graduates, and high school dropouts. What they shared was exceptional marksmanship, scores, and the mental profile required for sniper operations. The first month focused on fundamentals that would have seemed basic to civilian hunters but were revolutionary in their precision and scientific approach. Marcus learned that shooting at long range wasn't just about steady hands and good eyesight. It was applied physics, meteorology, and mathematics. Ballistics became Marcus's favorite subject. He discovered that every bullet follows a predictable arc through the air, affected by gravity, wind, temperature, and even the rotation of the earth. What had been instinctive adjustments during hunting trips in Nebraska now had mathematical formulas and scientific explanations. Instructor Staff Sergeant Lisa Park taught the meteorology component of sniper training. A former weather officer who had retrained as a sniper instructor, Park explained how humidity, barometric pressure, and temperature gradients affected bullet trajectory in ways most shooters never considered. A 10-degree temperature change can move your bullet impact 6 inches at 800 meters, Park explained during one memorable lesson. Wind isn't just about speed, it's about direction, consistency, and how it changes between you and your target. Marcus absorbed this information like a sponge. His farm background helped him understand weather patterns, but the scientific precision of sniper meteorology opened new levels of understanding. He started keeping detailed weather logs, tracking how different conditions affected his shooting performance. Physical training intensified beyond anything Marcus had experienced in basic training. Snipers needed to carry heavy equipment for long distances, remain motionless for hours, and maintain shooting accuracy after extreme physical exertion. The daily routine included 5-mile runs with full gear, strength training focused on core stability, and endurance exercises designed to simulate combat conditions. Marcus's farm work background served him well during the physical challenges, but he struggled with some of the military movement techniques. Urban camouflage and stealth movement required different skills than walking quietly through Nebraska woods. Instructor Sergeant Major Robert Hassan taught fieldcraft, the art of moving unseen and remaining hidden. Hassan was a legend in sniper circles, with combat deployments spanning 3 decades and a reputation for being nearly invisible in any environment. A sniper's greatest weapon isn't his rifle, Hassan would say during their grueling fieldcraft exercises. It's his ability to become part of the environment. If the enemy can see you, you're already dead. Marcus learned to create ghillie suits, camouflage clothing covered with natural materials that helped snipers blend into their surroundings. He spent hours learning to move silently across different types of terrain, from dense forests to urban environments. The mental aspects of sniper training proved more challenging than Marcus had anticipated. Unlike the movies, real snipers spent most of their time observing and gathering intelligence, not shooting. Students practiced surveillance techniques, learning to watch enemy positions for days while recording detailed information about personnel, equipment, and activities. Dr. Patricia Williams, the program's psychological consultant, worked with students on stress management and decision-making under pressure. Marcus's natural calmness was an advantage, but Dr. Williams pushed him to understand the psychological impact of taking human lives at long range. Snipers carry a psychological burden different from other combat soldiers, Dr. Williams explained during one of their sessions. You will see your targets clearly, often for extended periods. This creates emotional challenges that require mental preparation and coping strategies. Marcus found himself thinking about these conversations during quiet moments. Growing up hunting with his grandfather had prepared him for the technical aspects of shooting, but taking human lives in combat was something entirely different. The academic load was intense. Students attended classes on topics ranging from advanced mathematics to military intelligence analysis. Marcus learned to calculate firing solutions using logarithmic formulas, estimate ranges using geometric principles, and interpret aerial photographs to identify potential shooting positions. Mathematics had never been Marcus's strongest subject in high school, but the practical applications in sniper training made the concepts clearer. When calculating bullet drop meant the difference between hitting or missing a target at 1,000 meters, mathematical precision became critically important. Range training progressed from known distances to unknown ranges, from stationary targets to moving objects, from perfect weather conditions to challenging environmental factors. Marcus's scores consistently ranked in the top 3 of his class, but the instructors pushed him to achieve even higher levels of precision. The halfway point of the course brought the first major elimination. 8 students were dismissed for failing to meet minimum standards in various areas. Some couldn't handle the physical demands, others struggled with the academic requirements, and a few simply couldn't achieve the shooting accuracy required for graduation. Marcus watched fellow students pack their belongings and return to regular infantry units. Each departure reminded him how difficult this program was, and how easily he could find himself on the next bus, back to a conventional military assignment. During the 4th month, training scenarios became more realistic and stressful. Students faced simulated combat situations where they had to make rapid decisions about target identification, shot placement, and extraction routes. The instructors created scenarios designed to test judgment under pressure. One particularly challenging exercise required students to observe a mock enemy position for 48 hours, recording all activities while remaining completely hidden. Marcus spent 2 days lying motionless in a carefully constructed hide site, documenting the movements of role-playing enemy soldiers while avoiding detection by patrol teams actively searching for him. The exercise pushed Marcus to his physical and mental limits. By the 2nd day, his body ached from remaining in position, and his mind struggled to maintain focus on the surveillance task. But his natural patience and methodical approach helped him succeed where other students failed. Instructor Morrison found Marcus's hide site after the exercise ended and nodded approvingly at the detailed logs Marcus had maintained throughout the 48-hour period. "Thompson, this is the kind of work that saves lives in combat," Morrison said, reviewing the meticulous notes Marcus had recorded. "Intelligence gathering is often more important than shooting, and you've shown you understand that principle." As winter approached, the remaining 16 students began preparation for the final phase of training, live fire exercises at extended ranges with simulated combat stress. Marcus had proven himself in every area of the curriculum, but the final tests would determine whether he graduated as a qualified sniper or returned to regular infantry service. The farm boy from Nebraska had traveled far from the cornfields of his childhood, but the journey was far from complete. The most challenging tests lay ahead, and success would require everything he had learned during months of intensive training. Marcus wrote to his family regularly, though he couldn't share details about his training due to security restrictions. His letters home spoke of new challenges, growing confidence, and gratitude for the opportunity to serve in a specialized role. Sarah saved every letter, reading them repeatedly and sharing updates with Robert and Emma. The family could sense that Marcus was becoming someone different, more focused, more confident, but still the thoughtful young man who had left their farm with dreams of helping his family and serving his country. The final month of sniper school tested everything Marcus Thompson had learned during 6 months of intensive training. The remaining 14 students faced scenarios designed to simulate the most challenging conditions they might encounter in combat. Operations around the world. Instructor. Sergeant First Class Morrison had saved the most difficult challenges for last. Students worked in pairs, alternating between sniper and spotter roles while navigating complex tactical situations. Marcus was paired with Daniel Rodriguez, a former college student from California, whose analytical mind complemented Marcus's instinctive shooting abilities. The partnership between Marcus and Daniel developed naturally. Daniel excelled at rapid mathematical calculations and weather analysis, while Marcus demonstrated exceptional patience and shooting consistency. Together, they formed one of the strongest teams in their class. Their final field exercise took place in the mountains of northern Georgia, where students spent 10 days operating independently, while instructors evaluated their every move. Teams received missions requiring them to establish observation posts, gather intelligence, and engage simulated enemy targets at various ranges and conditions. Marcus and Daniel hiked 12 miles through rugged terrain to establish their first observation post. Carrying 60-pound packs containing everything they needed to survive and operate for 3 days, they moved carefully through dense forest, avoiding detection by instructor teams playing the role of enemy patrols. The observation post required them to watch a mock enemy compound for 72 hours, recording all activities and identifying high-value targets for elimination. Marcus lay motionless behind his rifle scope for hours at a time, while Daniel operated the spotting scope and maintained their logbook. On the second day of observation, they received their first shooting mission. A target representing an enemy commander appeared at a range of 847 meters, the longest shot Marcus had ever attempted. Wind conditions were challenging, with gusts varying between 8 and 15 miles per hour from shifting directions. Daniel worked quickly with his range cards and weather instruments, calculating the precise adjustments needed for the shot. Marcus studied the target through his scope, timing the wind patterns and watching for the brief moments when conditions would be most favorable. "Wind is dying down," Daniel whispered. "You've got about a 10-second window coming up." Marcus controlled his breathing, slowing his heart rate as he had practiced thousands of times. The crosshairs settled on the target as the wind indicators showed a temporary calm. His finger applied steady pressure to the trigger, and the rifle fired with familiar precision. The target fell immediately, struck center mass at a distance that would have been impossible for most soldiers to achieve consistently. Daniel confirmed the hit through his spotting scope and made notes about the environmental conditions and shooting. Solution Instructor Staff Sergeant Park observed the entire engagement from a concealed position 200 meters away. She had been watching Marcus's development throughout the course and recognized that this shot demonstrated exceptional skill. Development in a relatively short time, the remaining days of the field exercise presented additional challenges. Marcus and Daniel engaged targets at various ranges from 300 to 900 meters, in different weather conditions and times of day. Each shot required careful analysis of environmental factors and precise application of the mathematical principles they had studied. More importantly, they demonstrated the patience and discipline required for real sniper operations. During one 36-hour period, they waited motionless for a specific target to appear, maintaining their position despite discomfort, fatigue, and changing weather conditions. When the field exercise concluded, Marcus and Daniel had successfully completed all assigned missions while remaining undetected by instructor teams searching for them. Their shooting scores ranked first and second in the class, with Marcus achieving the highest overall accuracy percentage. The final week of sniper school included comprehensive written examinations covering ballistics, meteorology, tactics, and equipment maintenance. Marcus studied with the same methodical approach he had used for everything else, reviewing formulas and procedures until they became automatic responses. Graduation day arrived on a cold February morning with a light snow falling across the training facility. Only 11 students remained from the original 24 candidates who had begun the course 6 months earlier. Marcus stood in formation with his classmates, wearing the dress uniform that his family had never seen him wear. Colonel James Patterson, the installation commander, addressed the graduating class during the ceremony. A former sniper himself, Patterson understood the significance of completing one of the military's most demanding training programs. "You represent the finest marksmen and most disciplined soldiers in our army," Patterson said, looking directly at each graduate. "The skills you have developed here will save American lives and accomplish missions that conventional forces cannot achieve." Marcus received his sniper qualification, badge and official certification as a United States Army sniper. The small metal badge meant more to him than any trophy or recognition he had ever received. It represented months of dedication, sacrifice, and personal growth that had transformed him from a struggling farm kid into a highly trained specialist. Instructor Morrison pulled Marcus aside after the ceremony for a private conversation. Throughout the course, Morrison had watched Marcus develop from a recruit with natural shooting ability into a complete sniper with exceptional technical skills and tactical understanding. "Thompson, you've shown remarkable improvement during this course," Morrison said. "Your shooting scores are among the best I've seen in 15 years of instruction. But more importantly, you understand the complete mission of a sniper team." Morrison handed Marcus his next assignment, deployment to Afghanistan with the 3rd Infantry Division. Marcus would serve as part of a sniper section supporting combat operations in a region where American forces faced daily contact with enemy fighters. The reality of combat deployment hit Marcus as he read the official orders. Everything he had trained for would soon be tested in real combat situations where mistakes could cost lives. The mathematical formulas and shooting techniques would be applied against human targets who were actively trying to kill American soldiers. Marcus called home that evening to share the news of his graduation and upcoming deployment. Sarah answered the phone with excitement in her voice. She had been waiting for this call for weeks. "Marcus, we're so proud of you," she said immediately. "Your father and Emma are right here. We want to hear everything." Marcus explained what he could about his graduation and new assignment, though military security restrictions limited how much detail he could share. His family understood that he was being deployed to Afghanistan but didn't fully comprehend the specific nature of his duties there. Robert took the phone and spoke with quiet pride about his son's achievement. The farm was doing better financially thanks to Marcus's military pay, and the family felt optimistic about their future for the first time in years. "Son, I may not understand everything about what you do in the Army, but I know you're serving our country with honor," Robert said. "Your grandfather would have been proud to see what you've accomplished." Emma grabbed the phone last and peppered Marcus with questions about military life and sniper training. At 17, she was fascinated by her older brother's transformation from quiet farm boy to elite soldier. Marcus spent his brief leave period at home, helping with farm work and spending time with his family before deployment. The familiar routines of feeding cattle and maintaining equipment felt strange after months of intensive military training. But the peaceful countryside provided welcome relief from the stress of sniper school. Walking through the woods behind the family farm, Marcus reflected on how much his life had changed in less than a year. The patient, methodical approach that had made him different from other kids now served as the foundation for skills that would soon be tested in combat. 3 weeks later, Marcus boarded a military transport aircraft bound for Afghanistan, carrying specialized equipment and wearing the uniform of a United States Army sniper. His transformation from farm boy to elite soldier was complete. But his greatest challenge lay ahead in the mountains and valleys of a war zone where precision and patience would determine success or failure. The quiet kid from Nebraska was about to face the ultimate test of everything he had learned, and unknown to anyone at the time. He was also approaching a moment that would make military history and change his life forever. The transport plane descended through thick clouds toward Bagram Airfield in Afghanistan, and Marcus Thompson pressed his face against the small window to catch his first glimpse of the country where he would spend the next 15 months. The landscape below looked alien compared to the green farmland of Nebraska, endless brown mountains and valleys, stretching to every horizon. Operating Base Chapman sat in a valley surrounded by peaks that rose over 8,000 feet above sea level. Marcus arrived with his gear and immediately felt the difference in air pressure and temperature. February in Afghanistan was cold and dry, with snow covering the higher elevations and a thin atmosphere that made every breath feel inadequate. Staff Sergeant Michael Chen, the leader of Marcus's sniper section, met him at the helicopter landing pad. Chen was a compact, intense soldier from Oregon with 3 combat deployments and a reputation for keeping his snipers alive while accomplishing difficult missions. "Thompson, welcome to the war," Chen said with a slight grin. "Hope they taught you well in school because out here everything is different from the training scenarios." Marcus's new home was a plywood building he shared with 5 other snipers and their spotters. The accommodations were basic: a narrow cot, a small locker for personal items, and shared bathroom facilities that worked when the water system functioned properly. His roommate was Specialist Tom Williams, a sniper from Texas who had been in Afghanistan for 8 months. Williams helped Marcus understand the realities of combat operations in a mountainous environment where enemies could attack from any direction and disappear into terrain they had known since childhood. "The Taliban fighters in this area are good," Williams explained while Marcus organized his equipment. "They know every trail, every cave, and every hiding spot in these mountains. They can set up an ambush, hit our patrols, and vanish before we can respond." Marcus learned that his sniper team would support infantry patrols, provide overwatch for convoys, and conduct surveillance missions in areas where enemy activity was suspected. The missions required hiking for hours through difficult terrain while carrying heavy equipment and maintaining constant alertness for enemy contact. The first week included orientation briefings about the local area, enemy tactics, and rules of engagement. Marcus studied maps showing the complex terrain where American forces operated, noting elevation changes, vegetation patterns, and potential shooting positions. Captain Lisa Martinez, the company commander, addressed the new arrivals during a briefing that outlined the current tactical situation. Martinez was a West Point graduate with extensive combat experience who had earned respect from her soldiers through competent leadership and genuine concern for their welfare. "This area has seen increased enemy activity over the past month," Martinez explained, pointing to locations on a detailed map. "Intelligence reports suggest enemy fighters are using these valleys to move supplies and personnel. Your sniper teams will help us locate and eliminate these threats." Marcus's first combat mission came 10 days after his arrival. His team received orders to provide overwatch for an infantry patrol investigating reports of enemy weapon caches in a village 15 kilometers from the base. Sergeant Chen led Marcus and spotter Corporal Dave Peterson on a pre-dawn hike to establish their observation position. They climbed steadily for 2 hours, reaching an elevated position that overlooked the target village and surrounding approaches. The patrol they were supporting consisted of 30 infantry soldiers led by Lieutenant Jason Park, a young officer on his first deployment. Marcus watched through his rifle scope as the patrol approached the village, while Peterson used his spotting scope to scan for potential threats in the surrounding terrain. The village appeared peaceful at first, with children playing in dusty streets and women hanging laundry outside mud brick houses. But Marcus noticed details that suggested potential problems: the absence of military-age men, windows and doors that remained closed despite the patrol's presence, and livestock that seemed agitated. "Something doesn't feel right," Peterson whispered, echoing Marcus's own concerns. At 10:47 a.m., Marcus saw a muzzle flash from a building on the village's eastern edge. Enemy fighters had opened fire on the patrol from concealed positions, creating a complex ambush that threatened to trap the American soldiers in the village center. Contact. Multiple shooters in the eastern buildings. Chen radioed to the patrol leader while Marcus adjusted his rifle to engage the closest threat. The first shot Marcus fired in combat felt exactly like the thousands of practice shots he had taken during training. His breathing slowed, his heart rate decreased, and the rifle fired with familiar precision. The enemy fighter who had been shooting at the patrol fell immediately. Peterson spotted additional muzzle flashes from a rooftop 400 meters away. Marcus shifted his aim and fired again, eliminating a second threat before the enemy fighter could reload his weapon. The mathematical calculations and environmental adjustments he had practiced became automatic responses under the stress of real combat. The firefight lasted 18 minutes. Marcus engaged 4 different targets, hitting each with his first shot while Peterson provided crucial spotting assistance and maintained communication with the patrol. Their elevated position allowed them to identify enemy positions that the patrol couldn't see from ground level. When the shooting stopped, Lieutenant Park's patrol had successfully cleared the village and discovered a significant weapons cache without losing a single soldier. Marcus's accurate fire had eliminated key enemy fighters and disrupted their ambush plan at critical moments. That evening, back at the forward operating base, Marcus reflected on his first combat experience. The technical aspects of shooting had been exactly as he had trained, but the emotional impact of taking human lives required mental processing that no amount of preparation could have fully provided. Staff Sergeant Chen debriefed the mission with Marcus and Peterson, reviewing their performance and discussing lessons learned. Chen had observed the entire engagement and was impressed by Marcus's calm performance under fire. "Thompson, you handled that contact like a veteran," Chen said. "Most soldiers struggle with combat stress during their first firefight, but you seemed completely focused on the mission." Marcus's reputation began building after that first successful mission. Word spread through the forward operating base about the new sniper, who had performed exceptionally well during his combat debut. Other soldiers started referring to him as Nebraska, a nickname that stuck throughout his deployment. Over the following months, Marcus participated in dozens of combat operations throughout the region. Each mission presented different challenges, varying terrain, weather conditions, enemy tactics, and tactical situations that required careful analysis and precise shooting. He developed expertise in mountain warfare that went beyond his sniper school training. The thin air at high altitude affected bullet trajectory in ways that required constant adjustment of his shooting solutions. Temperature variations between day and night created additional complications that demanded flexible thinking and quick adaptation. Marcus's shooting skills continued improving through constant practice and real-world application. He began engaging targets at ranges that pushed the limits of his equipment and training, consistently achieving first-round hits at distances that impressed even experienced snipers. By summer, Marcus had become one of the most effective snipers in his unit. His combination of technical precision, tactical understanding, and calm performance under pressure made him the preferred choice for the most challenging missions. The mission that would make history was still months away, but Marcus was developing the skills, confidence, and combat experience that would make an impossible shot possible. Each successful engagement built upon previous lessons learned, creating a foundation of expertise that would soon be tested in the most demanding circumstances imaginable. His family's letters from home provided emotional support during the difficult months of combat operations. Sarah wrote about life in their small Nebraska town. Emma shared her senior year high school experiences, and Robert provided updates about farm operations and his pride in Marcus's military service. Marcus couldn't share details about his combat experiences due to security restrictions, but his letters home conveyed growing confidence and satisfaction with his role as a sniper. He was becoming the soldier he had hoped to become when he first walked into the recruiting station nearly 2 years earlier. The war zone had tested every aspect of his training and character, but Marcus had proven himself capable of excelling in the most demanding environment the military could provide. His transformation from farm boy to elite sniper was nearly complete, and the stage was being set for a moment that would define his military career and establish his place in sniper history. October in Afghanistan brought cooler temperatures and clearer skies to the mountains surrounding forward operating base Chapman. Marcus Thompson had been in country for 8 months, participating in over 40 combat missions and establishing himself as one of the most reliable snipers in the 3rd Infantry Division. The mission briefing on October 15th seemed routine at first. Intelligence reports indicated that a high-value target, a Taliban commander responsible for coordinating attacks against American forces, was meeting with local fighters in a remote valley 25 kilometers from the base. Captain Martinez stood before the assembled soldiers in the briefing room, pointing to aerial photographs that showed the target area's complex terrain. The valley was narrow and steep-sided, with limited approaches that would make conventional assault extremely difficult. This individual has been responsible for at least 12 attacks against our forces over the past 6 months, Martinez explained. Intelligence suggests he'll be at this location for only a few hours, so we have a narrow window of opportunity. Staff Sergeant Chen would lead a 4-man sniper team including Marcus, Spotter Corporal Peterson, and Communications Specialist Private Johnson. Their mission was to establish an observation post and eliminate the target if positive identification could be made. The helicopter insertion took place at 0300 hours, landing the team 6 kilometers from their objective in darkness. Marcus carried his customized M24 sniper rifle, the same weapon he had used throughout his deployment, along with 60 pounds of additional equipment including survival gear, communications equipment, and ammunition. The approach march through mountainous terrain took 4 hours, with the team moving carefully through boulder fields and steep ravines, while avoiding areas where enemy fighters might establish observation posts. Chen navigated using GPS coordinates and night vision equipment, following a route planned to minimize their visibility. They reached their planned observation position just as dawn began lighting the eastern peaks. The location provided excellent visibility across the target valley, while offering concealment among large rocks and scrub vegetation. Peterson immediately began setting up his spotting scope, while Marcus prepared his shooting position. The target building sat on the opposite side of the valley, a traditional Afghan compound with high mud brick walls and a central courtyard. Using his laser rangefinder, Peterson measured the distance at 2,147 meters, nearly 1.4 miles and far beyond the normal effective range of Marcus's rifle and ammunition. "That's a hell of a long shot," Peterson whispered, studying the target area through his scope. "I've never seen anyone attempt something at that range with our equipment." Marcus had engaged targets at distances up to 200 meters during his deployment, but 2,247 meters represented a completely different level of challenge. The bullet would take over 3 seconds to reach the target, dropping more than 30 feet during its flight and requiring precise calculation of wind effects across the entire trajectory. Chen studied the tactical situation and consulted with the command post via encrypted radio. The terrain made it impossible to establish a closer position without exposing the team to enemy observation. If they were going to complete this mission, it would have to be from their current location. At 0847 hours, vehicles arrived at the target compound and several individuals exited, gathering in the central courtyard. Peterson used high-power optics to study each person, comparing them to photographs of the target provided by intelligence sources. "I've got positive identification on the primary target," Peterson reported after several minutes of careful observation. "Adult male, dark beard, wearing tan robes. He matches all the identifying characteristics in our briefing materials." Marcus studied the target through his rifle scope, noting the man's position and movement patterns. The individual stood in conversation with several other people, occasionally moving around the courtyard but generally remaining in a predictable location. The environmental conditions were challenging, but not impossible. Wind speeds varied between 5 and 12 miles per hour, coming primarily from the southwest but with occasional shifts in direction. Temperature was rising as the sun climbed higher, creating thermal effects that would influence bullet trajectory. Peterson worked through the ballistic calculations using his range cards, weather instruments, and field computer. The extreme range meant that small errors in environmental assessment would result in significant misses. Every factor had to be calculated precisely. "Elevation adjustment is 42 minutes of angle up," Peterson reported. "Wind call is 6 minutes right, but watch for thermals rising from the valley floor." Marcus made the adjustments to his rifle scope, knowing that the settings pushed his equipment beyond its designed parameters. The shot would require not just technical precision, but also an element of luck with environmental conditions that could change during the bullet's 3-second flight time. At 0923 hours, the target moved to a position in the courtyard that offered the clearest shooting opportunity. Marcus settled into his shooting position, controlling his breathing and heart rate as he had practiced thousands of times. The crosshairs aligned on the target as Marcus applied steady pressure to the trigger. Environmental conditions seemed stable, with wind indicators showing consistent direction and velocity. This was the moment when all his training experience and natural ability would be tested at the extreme limits of possibility. The rifle fired with familiar precision, sending the carefully prepared round on its long arc across the valley. Marcus maintained his shooting position, tracking the target through his scope while Peterson used his spotting equipment to observe the bullet's impact. For 3 eternal seconds, the bullet flew through thin mountain air, fighting gravity and wind while carrying the hopes of a farm boy from Nebraska who had traveled impossibly far from his family's cornfields. The impact was visible through both scopes, a clean hit on the intended target at a distance that military experts would later declare nearly impossible with the equipment Marcus had used. The Taliban commander fell immediately, eliminated by a shot that would become legendary in sniper circles worldwide. Peterson confirmed the hit and immediately began packing equipment for rapid extraction. The sound of the shot would alert enemy fighters to their general location, making it critical to leave the area before hostile forces could respond. "Outstanding shot, Nebraska," Chen said quietly as the team prepared to move. "I've never seen anything like that in 15 years of military service." The extraction march took 6 hours, with the team moving carefully through terrain that offered concealment from potential pursuit. Marcus felt a mixture of professional satisfaction and emotional complexity about what he had accomplished. That evening, back at Forward Operating Base Chapman, news of the record-breaking shot spread throughout the military community. Ballistics experts verified the range and environmental conditions, confirming that Marcus had achieved something unprecedented in modern warfare. The shot at 2,247 meters shattered previous records for successful sniper engagements, establishing Marcus Thompson as the holder of the longest confirmed kill in military history. Military analysts would spend years studying the technical aspects of the shot, trying to understand how a 19-year-old farm boy had accomplished what seemed mathematically impossible. But for Marcus, the significance went beyond military records or technical achievement. He had used skills developed through patient practice and methodical study to successfully complete a mission that protected American lives and advanced his unit's objectives. 3 weeks later, Marcus received orders returning him to the United States for reassignment and specialized training. His combat deployment was complete, but his reputation as one of the finest snipers in military history was just beginning. The quiet kid from Nebraska who had joined the Army to help his family save their farm had become something he never could have imagined. A legend whose single shot would be studied and discussed by military professionals for generations to come. The impossible had become possible through the combination of natural talent, intensive training, combat experience, and one perfect moment when everything aligned exactly as it needed to be.